Hello, everyone. Welcome to Astrologer Climate Witness. Today, I'm going to go further in depth on the transit of Pisces, a transit of Neptune through Pisces and Neptune through the third house of the United States chart. And I'm going to be discussing the chart of Donald Trump and how those two things mesh. We're going to talk today about cults. As those of you who have been studying astrology for a while do know that one of the symbolisms of Pisces Neptune is the influence of cults upon people at certain times in their lives. Not everyone, of course, but how cults do use certain techniques and psychological manipulation to gather or recruit people into their influence. So I'm going to start by discussing, I was looking at this article and it was very good. Of course I didn't write it down. I do have it in my phone, so I'm going to put it in the notes. Let's see, where did I start taking notes here? I did say, so as I stated or covered in my last video, we are experiencing not only the transit of Neptune through Pisces, but also the U.S. progressed sun in Pisces. So here we are going to remind ourselves that any planet or sign can be expressed positively, constructively, or negatively, destructively. Okay, it's not a one or the other. It's many times it's a middle ground kind of thing. Okay. So if we think about the U.S. population right now and how that theme is affecting our nation's population, there is no trust in the media. That's one thing. Okay. And I'm talking about media again because we're talking about third house. Neptune transiting the third house, the collection of information and data from your immediate environment. And this is opposing the ninth house where the U.S. natal Neptune is located in Virgo. Okay, so Neptune moving through the third house of the United States chart is still influencing the ninth house, publications, journalism, those types of things. Okay, so the Neptune transiting is opposing that. Okay, now there's no consensus on facts anymore. No such thing as facts, and many people seem to be caught up in a looking for a savior complex. We are in a serious conflict about being compassionate, empathetic, and humanitarian versus listening to a leader who is a cult-like figure that is using his narcissism to dupe people into a very delusional path for the country. Yeah, I said that. He demonizes everyone who opposes him and uses derogatory language, name-calling, and threats. This is the behavior of a bully. We could all come to terms with what a bully acts like when they want to get their way or just to push their influence into or onto people. Okay? So, again, there's no facts. This person we're speaking of doesn't use any facts, and if he does, he has a tendency to be able to manipulate and twist the information that he's giving out about these. But most of the time, he's using very vague language, demonizing and name-calling in his speeches, and there's no substance to what he's saying most of the time. Okay. There is an energy, a psychological manipulating that is going on when he's speaking. One of the most common practices of someone who's forming or gathering members of a cult is to, and now this is where I started to write down notes from this article, and that this article will be in the show notes. Picking the right target. Most people are initially normal, healthy individuals, but they're under the right conditions, they can be susceptible to cult influence. Okay, which if they're under certain times in their life where there's stress, emotionally vulnerable times, or they have tenuous or non-existent family connections, or are living in an adverse socioeconomic condition. Okay. One of the examples would be new college students are a prime example of a good target for cult recruitment, since they are still forming their identity and have recently been separated from family. Those who have been neglected or abused are also people who could be influenced strongly by cult manipulations. There is a false belief that cult recruits are mentally ill. Cults don't want completely unpredictable people, so that is not the case. They usually want relatively stable people who can work to forward the cult's goals and donate money. But these people may be going through times of stress and therefore are prime targets. Then they use something called the love bomb. These people that are recruiting for their cult, they use the love bomb. So they compliment the people, they tell them how much they care, and this is a safe haven place where you can come and have friends and we'll support you, and how wonderful you are and all the skills and talents that you have. Okay? And then they use isolation. And we've all heard this, where they have you cut off your family members or friends who are, not they're not doing in your best interest or whatever. We've seen and heard all these things about cults where the people, once they join, they don't have connection to their families or their friends anymore. That's cut off. And that's part of the recommendation, or it is mandatory by the cult leaders. Okay. And then they have something called control, exposing members to love and terror. So at the same time, there's a use of some kind of threat. It's either from the outside or it is used subliminally, and it comes from the leaders. And so there's the love from the leader, but also this vague kind of threat from the leader, and the person is confused and doesn't know where to turn and is kind of paralyzed, so to speak. It's in this article. They explain it very well. So then I'm also been listening to a few psychiatrists. There's a site that I call a YouTube channel, The Midas Touch, and he's interviewed a couple of psychiatrists who are speaking about this situation. I do believe the one person, her name is Bandy Lee, and then I have another one, and she is here and she's speaking, and I'm going to put that link also in the notes for the show. So she states that the people who are vulnerable to cult influence, they're searching for something, a parent figure as a leader. Okay, so in some ways, the people who are vulnerable to this influence are looking for something that was missing in their lives. It doesn't have to be a clinical situation, but whatever stresses or influence or period phase they're going through in their life right then, it sort of triggers that, and they're vulnerable and they're looking for a parental type leader. And we can see at times, like when Trump discusses or says things like, I'm the only one who could fix this. There's been statements like that from him. And he's the only one. This is a very cult leader like statement. They're the only ones that you could depend on to take care of you or to make things better or to fix whatever situation that you have been running from or have been stuck in. Okay, so now I've been working on Trump's chart a bit, and I have a picture that I've drawn. No, I don't have all the, I don't even know how to upload and show you at the same time I'm doing this, the computerized charts from, say, AstroSeek or um, one of those Astro charts or anything like that. I don't know how to do that yet. So I have drawn his chart. And as we can see, hopefully, uh, see the red? That is his Mars in the 12th house. And I've mentioned that in the last video, how the aggression when he's in public, especially when he's using his personality, you don't necessarily see that he's like a physically violent person, but he uses his influence, his showmanship, the Leo, to instigate other people to do this for him. He hides his aggression in the 12th house or subconsciously, and he gets the masses to do this for him. Now, in the United States chart, you also have the Mars of the United States at 21 degrees of Gemini. Hold on, I forgot something. I put it on this. I have it hanging on my little easel all the time. Now, see the Mars for the United States, the red. I have it highlighted in red and yellow, and that's 21 degrees. And so it's exactly opposite Trump's 21-degree moon. And I can't make the moon very well. It's kind of smudged. I'm not very good at drawing these things. But as you can see, the 21 degrees moon. And I did look up that description in the natal chart, or well, synastry, okay, between two people. And it does mention things along the lines of the moon person experiences the Mars as too on the offensive, so to speak, and the moon person could be hurt because the Mars person is too forward or too direct. Okay? So, in a way, this is one of the things that I think Trump experiences as far as his subconscious, his feelings, that the United States, it might, I don't know what, but the government is too aggressive toward him. That's another whole thing, but I just thought I'd throw that out there that there is an exact opposition, though, between his moon and the United States Mars. So, now, in the long run, when you have someone with the 29 degrees Leo rising, you can see that right there, 29 degrees Leo, and again, it's sitting on top of the fixed star, and as we mentioned last time, and this is, hold on one second. Regulus, okay, a bright, prominent fixed star located at approximately 29 degrees of the zodiac sign Leo. It is one of the four royal stars of Persia. Okay. So that word royal, I mean, again, I'm bringing up how the Leo energy, I mean, the showman, I mean, that's so Leo, right? Is Donald Trump. I mean, he's so invested in that, you know, so invested in that presentation, his outer personality. Um, So, being that the rising sign is at 29 degrees Leo, like I mentioned last time, he is supposed to be moving beyond that and learning how to be of service through the Virgo, but he's not been able to get there. He's very stuck. And I did read years and years ago that when you have a planet or a point in the chart that's at 29 degrees, it's the last chance you have of expressing that energy positively and constructively. And if you do not, I guess I don't know what happens. But that is what I read. And so it doesn't look as though he is using this energy positively at all. He can't. And if you listened, or when you listen to the video of the psychiatrist from that channel, the Midas Touch, you will really see how things have been weird. She even mentions, and I remember something about this good few years ago when he was running, or when he first became elected the first time. The main body, or the Institute for Psychiatric Practice, had limited what people could say publicly about him, or there was this thing about, you're not treating him, you haven't met him, so you can't publicly say anything about a diagnosis for him. Well, what they go on about in this video, she states that he's the most photographed person in the world, and has been for a good few years. And that many, many psychiatrists were really confused once he became in that position, and they said that you're not allowed to do this. That has not been the practice of this institution for decades. It's called the Goldwater Rule, or something like that. You'll see if you listen to the video, where earlier on, because of the Second World War, psychiatrists were able to do this when they could see publicly how a leader was acting, and they would come out and state their interpretation of the behavior, so that we didn't run into things like Nazism again, where it would get out of control, and people were silent, or nobody spoke up and said something about the pathology of the leader. And now when Donald Trump gets in, the American Psychiatric Institute said, no, you can't do this. And it was really weird. So she brings up how they were getting money, donations, and they were, I suppose, afraid if they allowed this to happen, they wouldn't get that. I mean, this is really sad. But most of the psychiatrists were really opposed to this new rule. It's new once he got in, that they couldn't speak publicly about him. I mean, that is really very, very suspect. So, if you, let's see what we could do. I want to see if I can look at this more. The Regulus conjunctions. So, let's see. Ascendant. Leadership and confidence. Regulus on the ascendant may suggest a person with natural leadership qualities. The individual may project confidence, charisma, and a desire to be recognized for their achievements. There can be a regal or authoritative presence. Okay, that sounds really positive, right? But he would have been fine. That was one thing for it to be, or for him to be, that in the business world. If he had stayed in that, he was a bad businessman from what I understand and all that I've read about him. But if he'd stayed in that realm, I mean, there wasn't going to be that much damage. I mean, it was his business life and the people around him. But once he became a politician, it was a whole different story. You have responsibility to take care of the people of your nation. Your ego is not important anymore. It is true, I think, that many politicians, their egos are quite big and large. You have to have a very strong ego to be a politician. You have to be a strong ego just to survive in this world. And not an over pompous ego, but it has to be able to stand up to the rigors of life, right? So anyway, but if you read more about him, and I do have Mary Trump's book. I've only read like half of it. I gotta find where I put it. But it was discussed about his early childhood. Apparently, his mother was hospitalized because of the birth of the second or the younger brother, and it, Trump was only two and a half, and there was some other issues happening at the time. So it's very interesting when you see that the attention, Leo, that he needed and wanted, he didn't get. Okay. Um, so if one is interested in looking into this much further and seeing how the public, oh, I didn't even get into, again, the Pisces progressed sun for the United States. It's like our population is doing both expressions of Pisces. You have the positive, where much of the population is like, okay, we have all these immigration issues, right? But people are human beings and we need to help as much as possible. People are fleeing from many things in South American countries, and from what I see, other countries at this point too, but mainly South America. We have the violence from disrupted economies, and these countries, Venezuela, other countries, they're totally wrapped up in United States business corporations, etc. Our oil companies have been down there for decades, and they've been ruining the land that these people live on, indigenous peoples. But the other thing is climate change. Um, Climate change, I've seen a good few videos now where the subsistence farmers, like say in Argentina or Chile, in the mountains, there's no more water coming, and not enough from those glaciers. They're melting, and the water they usually have in the summers down there is not coming because the glaciers are retreating drastically. So, and it's not raining. So over the past good few years, they haven't been able to feed their families. Small little tiny villages where these people do subsistence farming. And there was one video where the father had sent his 16-year-old son to the United States. I mean, they didn't have any, there was nothing happening for them in their country either. There was so much violence, and you have the drug cartels. But so some of the people in the United States have that compassion and empathy and trying to understand and put themselves in somebody else's shoes, right? Sure, we need to do immigration reform. Everybody knows that. That is true. That is a definite fact of logic that we need to work on this and make the immigration process more efficient, more thorough, and then better for people to be able to become citizens, right? But then you have this other side of Pisces, in which the cult leader has demonized these people coming across, totally making statements that are broad brushing these people to be drug addicts and terrorists, and leaving out totally the fact that these are human beings. Most of them are human beings. I mean, all of them are human beings, but most of them are, legit people who are coming here to flee from violence, flee from climate change, which is only going to get worse. And if you've been following climate, hopefully, since you're coming here, you have been. And I know it's really hard. Maybe some people that are listening right now, they're not happy with the immigration situation. Well, there's been decades in which they've been trying to do something about immigration and to fix the problems. And it's not being fixed because, number one, Republicans love to use it as a to run on for campaigns. Oh, the Democrats, they don't want to fix it. They don't want to fix it. Well, there's been plenty of attempts for a bipartisan work on this, bipartisan bills to be able to do this. But in some cases, it is true that some people don't want any immigration. And we hear the words of Donald Trump, how they are poisoning our blood. So is this similar to the Nazis' racism, white supremacy? That they don't want anyone like that coming in at all. I mean, this country does not belong to white Christian people. Yes, I'm going to say that right now. It's very difficult for some people to get out of their bubble from what we've been taught over the decades. We do not own this country per se. It was built by many, many different people, not just white people, white Christian people. It was built by all kinds of people. Without all the different people that added and contributed to this country, we wouldn't be who we are. So I really hope that people start looking into more history and look at the other side of things rather than the fear mongering. And yes, that's part of the whole Pisces thing, because the imagination can run away with you, and you can start fearing all kinds of imaginary issues. And if you've got a cult-like leader pushing and fueling that, you're going to succumb to that way of thinking. But you must use some Mercury. You must use some logic to slice through. I was going to bring a tarot card, the number one, the Mercury, the magician, and as an archetype, to be able to have people read and learn and read and learn, go back into history, start thinking more clearly, and come out of the Pisces Neptune fog. Oh, what I was going to say was I was going to cover this a couple of transits. Okay, so we had Neptune, the dates, because I didn't really give the dates last time, was opposite the natal Neptune for the United States. The beginning around April 2021, it was about 21 degrees, and the natal Neptune is 22. So that was the beginning of the influence. Could even have started a little before that at 20 degrees. What orb you use is a big deal. Up to December of 2022, okay? And so all that time, Neptune opposed the natal Neptune of the United States. So here you have opposing aspirations, opposing inspiration, opposing delusions, okay, between theorizing, conceptual understanding of things, the ninth house, and journalism. And then you've got the third house, which is data and information collecting, or third house, processing, cognitive thinking. So, that is, you can see it. I mean, they talk about it in the media all the time. They could get an astrologer on there and get them to understand it even easier, because that's what they say on the news. We've all been duped, and there's no facts anymore. There's all this delusional discussions about conspiracies and fake news. I mean, it's so Neptunian, right? If you read astrology and you read the descriptions of Neptune and Pisces, one way that's very negative is delusion, self-delusion, um, vagueness, right? And so now, what is going to be interesting is when Saturn, which is transiting Pisces now, when it is in opposition to that natal Neptune for the United States. And that will be happening starting around March 2025. And by what I was looking, there's no back and forth. There's no retrograde back and forth. So it's a one-shot deal. We have to clarify that Saturn opposing Neptune, Saturn is matter. Saturn is discipline and the real world. And when it opposes our natal Neptune, that will kind of, I think, wake up the public a bit, I think. Or we will reap the consequences of falling for occult influence. Not occult, falling for cult influence. Okay, cult influence. So Saturn will bring its hard-earned lessons around that time, March 2025. So, and we're building up to it. I mean, we could be doing the work with Saturn start going through Pisces in the third house, coming to terms with real information and real facts. That's Saturn. The negative side of Saturn sometimes is a block. You could get blocks. Writers, they get writer's blocks, or you have a mental block of some sort. So the public could possibly be in the public could possibly be experiencing it that way. But eventually, karma hits, and we will see what happens at that time. Maybe another time I'll be covering some of the other aspects that'll be happening right around then to add to the information. I mean, right before that, being that it's mutable, okay, Pisces is mutable. Right before that, it will square the natal Mars in the United States. So there could be third house transportation, media, or information that will be conflicting the U.S. Mars situation, which would be Mars in the seventh. That's open aggression from an open enemy, something along those lines. The Saturn, it could be that some information stops aggression, or there's an inability for those two things to work together. So the reality of information that we get is too conflicting to what we want to do in the outside world, according to our partners. We can almost already see it with Trump saying that he's not going to support NATO countries because they haven't been paying their bill, and Russia can do whatever the hell they want, right? Well, what that sounds like? It sounds like a mob boss. It sounds like or not even the whole mob boss. It sounds like the neighborhood guy working for the mob who goes to different stores and say, look, you didn't pay your dues, so, we're going to let them do whatever they want to your store. We're not going to protect you, right? That's exactly what that sounds like, okay? So just keep all these things in mind. I know I've been on this whole Pisces thing for a while, just like I was on the Pluto and Capricorn thing for a while. But this is a big deal. We can see it every day in the news, fake news, that certain people saying fake news, that the news is all fake. All the news is fake. There's no facts. But of course, we know certain news corporations are fake. And they even had a trial. They had to go to trial because they were being sued over their coverage of news. And the way they got out of doing or being held completely responsible is because they said, oh, we're not a news organization, we're an entertainment. That was Fox News. That's what they said legally to get out of it. They still had to pay money. They had to pay a lot of money, but it could have been worse for them. They said, oh, we're an entertainment network. We're not a news organization, but they still have Fox, I think. Maybe they changed their title. It's not Fox News anymore. I'd have to remember. I have to go look. But you could just see all this Pisces Neptune influence going through our country. And certain people, I actually know somebody. This is really weird, and I've known it for a while, but I really didn't think it was as exact as it is. There's quite a few difference. I'm talking about somebody I know personally, has almost the same exact outer chart as Donald Trump. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so, yeah. And the person is a Trump supporter, okay? Which really shocks me and saddens me. So anyway, I am done right now, and I will pick up on another subject maybe very soon. And thank you for visiting Astrology Climate Witness tonight. And take care.